Good evening and welcome to the Eldritch Avenue podcast, documenting a lifetime of experiences with the ridiculous, the absurd, the unusual, the peculiar, and the sometimes unfathomable. I am your host, Joel Norman, sharing with you the many inexplicable happenings which have occurred to me over the course of my 57 years here on planet Earth. I will present my experiences of time spent on the eldritch frontiers in 3 waves. The first wave stories will be the easiest for you to digest. These stories are non-threatening, easy to comprehend, and readily placed in reality. The second wave stories, though readily placed in reality, will be difficult to listen to, and only the empathetic mind will get through them. The third wave stories will look at these things all sane persons edit out of their conscious lives as they carefully curate the content of their reality. These are the things your mind will be desperate for you to avoid. These stories open wide that which is named the eldritch, that being the otherworldly, that which is beyond. So the summer after Donna Bird and I experienced the meadow full of horror, we were a little bit older, a little bit, well, I don't know about wiser, but we had a little more experience and our parents felt confident that, we could, be playing together out in the wilderness of Iowa, so to speak. And of course, Donna Bird had a new adventure for us. She had contrived a new game plan of something she wanted to do. And it was straightforward and simple, and she wanted to go fishing because her dad and her uncles had told her all about this amazing fishing hole down on a pasture, at Lloyd and Alice's once again. Now, don't worry, it was just beyond the meadow full of horror, and there were no wildflowers, so we were safe. And there was another pasture, and they had cows in it, but there was no bull, so it was safe, quote unquote safe. And there was a creek that ran through this pasture. And they had, there was an electrical fence that, ran the length of the pasture, of course, because the fence, the original fence that was put up in the 1800s was an old wooden fence that with barbed wire, and it was, wouldn't keep anything fenced in, really. And so, of course, they put up an electric fence to keep the cows in. And this is what this family did. Apparently they liked raising cattle, and they liked electric fences. And so we had to, pack our poles, and our mothers packed us lunches and a big cooler full of water, one of those coolers with a handle on it. So my mom packed me a lunch, and Donna's mom packed her a lunch, and Donna's mom, Bonnie, drove us down to the famous fishing hole at Lloyd and Alice's. So she drops us off, and she's like, all right, so we'll come back down here and get you guys like about half an hour before supper. How's that sound? Okay, whatever. So just me and Donna Bird, and this pasture was sort of on a corner where there was one gravel road heading east and west and another gravel road heading north-south. And then, of course, there was this really deep, wide ditch between the edge of the road and the fence that, kept the cattle in the pasture. So we had to go through the ditch and under the fence, blah, 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 to get to the famous fishing hole. So this ditch was full of old farming equipment and metal crap from, I don't know, the 1800s or the 30s or something. Because it was old iron equipment that was really rusted. There was old bundles of steel fencing and all kinds of crap. And so Donna's like, we got to be careful and we don't want to get cut and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we carefully pick our way through all of this, crap in this ditch. And there was really tall grass and weeds in the ditch. It was mostly just grass. And once you were down in the ditch, the grass came up to your chest. So you really couldn't even see what you were doing. So you had to be really careful. But we're holding our poles over our heads and we're wandering, finding our way through this ditch full of rusty old farm equipment. We finally get through the ditch and get up to the fence. And of course we have to carefully, get over this rickety old wooden barbed wire fence. And then of course we had to go under the electric fence. And when we get to the electric fence, we just tossed our poles over into the pasture and then set our tackle boxes under the electric fence and pushed them forward. And then we had to get down on our bellies and we had to shimmy military style under the barbed wire and under the electric fence. And in this pasture, there was a lot of cows. So there was a lot of cow pies and there was a lot of thistles as well. And these were these deadly, not deadly, but these really seriously painful thistles. They were spiky and hard and they would cut you. And they were painful. So you had to thread your way through the cow pies and the thistles while keeping your head down so you don't get electrocuted by the electric fence. So we did that, and then we could stand up again and grab our tackle boxes and grab our fishing poles. And we walked, it's 25 feet over to the creek, the fishing hole, right? Well, the fishing hole, which was a creek that, they had sort of put a little dam on so it would create a little bit of a pond. And so the creek really fed into this little bitty fishing hole. It wasn't even a pond. It was, a fishing hole, I guess. And so they had, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a deep fishing hole or what, but they had put the electric fence all along the creek so the cattle couldn't get into the creek. So I'm standing there looking at the scene, and Donna gets out her, her tackle box and gets out her fishing bait and puts it on her treble hook or whatever it was. And she's, walks up. I'm like, how the hell are we supposed to fish in this famous fishing hole if it's, ringed in electrical fence? Well, we just cast over the electrical fence. And I'm like, wait. No. What? This is clearly not a wise idea. This is not a good idea. Don's like, come on, it'll be okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, if anyone tells you repeatedly it's going to be okay, don't trust them. Don't listen to them. Run away. Just go. Anybody who says that. And that was something Donna always said. It'll be okay. I'm like, no, Donna, it's not always going to be okay. But anyway, so I'm like, well, I want to see you do this because I'm going to just sort of see how it works. So Donna, she gets her worms out and she puts a worm on her hook and she casts it and blunk right in the water. And I'm like, okay, well, if Donna can do it, then I guess I can do it. So I put a worm on my hook and I cast and it goes in the water because it's 8 feet away and you're standing right next to this electric fence. And I still didn't like that idea. I didn't like this concept. And I'm like, this is not going to be a carefree day of fishing. I've been fishing before. I had been fishing before. And it was kind of like one of those lazy summer afternoon activities where you don't have to run, you don't have to think, and you just kind of sit there and listen to the bugs and the weeds and watch the birds and the clouds go by, Nope. This was going to be a taxing activity. So I cast my line, and I always fished with the bobber, and just because there was pretty clear if you had a bobber, if you had a fish on it, right? Because the bobber would run away. Once the bobber starts running, that means you got to fish and you pull it in. That's how I like to fish, because there was no thinking about it. So I'm sitting there, I'm staring at my bobber. It's not moving, baking in the summer sun. And Donna is getting impatient because, her dad and uncles and her brother had fed her this line about how this was a great fishing hole and it was going to be awesome and they could catch tons of fish. So Donna was getting impatient because she wasn't catching fish. So she says, I'm going to go up the creek a little ways and fish there. So she reels her line in, carefully lifting it up over the electric fence, and then she runs down, about 40 feet away and casts in, and then she doesn't catch anything there, and she moves closer down the creek and casts again and nothing. And within 20 minutes, she's back near me, and she's like, well, nothing's biting up there. My dad said fish would be biting, so I'm going to go down over the road and fish, because there's a little pond there, actually. So I'm going to try and fish in the pond, and maybe I'll use a lure. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not a fisher person. I'm not excited to be fishing. I'm just, whatever. It's summer and, this is what we're doing. So Donna, hooks her hook on her pole and wraps it up, and she just walks over to the electric fence and tosses her fishing pole and her tackle box over the fence and then crawls underneath, and I see her crawling under the electric fence. And so I'm still I turn my attention back to the creek, and I'm like, okay, well, I have a feeling that, maybe my bait has fallen off the hook. I should, check it again. So I reel up my line and check the bait and rehook the worm. And then I cast my line again. And just as I cast my line, the screaming started. And once again, the screaming. And of course, it's very shocking to hear your best friend screaming bloody murder. And this was serious screaming. Something was wrong. Something was very, very, very wrong. And I turn and I look, and all I can see is Donna in the ditch up to her chest in weeds. And I can't see anything else of what's going on. And she's screaming and she's like, I'm hurt, I'm hurt. And then she starts saying, the guts are coming out. And that freaked me out. That just totally freaked me out. That she's like, the guts are coming out. And that, of course, conjures up an image of her intestines spilling out of her stomach cavity. That's what I thought the guts are coming out meant, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what everyone thinks. That's what everybody thinks when you say that. And so I'm freaking out. She's in the weeds. I can't see what's going on. She's screaming bloody murder, saying the guts are coming out, and she's calling me to help her. And she's like, Joel, Joel, Joel. I'm like, oh my God. So, at that moment, my fishing line floats down across the electric fence that is keeping the cattle from getting into the creek. And at that moment, I become fully electrocuted. And those fences, those electric fences they use to keep cows in, they kind of have a bit of a punch to them. They got a kick to them. And what happened in that moment, as I'm being electrocuted, the electricity traveled from my fishing line, of course, up to my pole, and from my pole to my hand and to my arm, and caused my hand and my arm to seize up and just put a death grip on the fishing pole. And I couldn't control my hand. I couldn't make my hand do anything because of this intense electrical current from the electric fence. And I can't let go of it. I'm getting electrocuted, and it's a really powerful, current. It's a very powerful current. It's not enough to hurt you or kill you, really, but it's very powerful. And my hands are seized up, and my hand holding the pole can't let go. And I'm like, Donna's screaming the guts are coming out. And Joel, why aren't you helping, Joel? And she's like, why are you just standing there? And I'm like, she's screaming bloody murder and I'm not moving. And that's because I'm being electrocuted and I can't move because my muscles are all seized up. And I'm just like, so I'm trying to consciously get my mind to override the signals in my arm that are being messed up by, like, the signal going from my brain to my hand was not functioning. Obviously, it was the current was so strong that it was messing with, my instinct and messing with my conscious ability to control my hand. And I'm trying to consciously loosen my grip on the pole and drop it because I understand I'm being electrocuted. I can see the line across the electric fence. I understand now why I'm frozen in this weird electrical, hell. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I was able to like begin to loosen my hand, and then just instinct came over me again, and I smacked the pole down out of my hand. My left hand I used to just smack the pole out of my right hand. And the pole dropped to the ground, the muddy, muddy ground filled with cow pies and thistles. And I'm just sort of like shaking. I'm just like shaking because I'm just like, and Donna's still screaming. And the screaming pulled my attention back from my electrocution. And I ran over and had to shimmy underneath of the electrical fence and over the barbed wire fence. And I was doing this. And she's like, no, go get Alice. Well, Donna's aunt and uncle, her great aunt and her great uncle just lived down the road. Just down the road, maybe 3 city blocks, maybe, or 2 city blocks, something like that. It wasn't that far. Donna's like, go get Alice. She's like, I'm bleeding, Joel. And I'm like, I freaked out. So I ran up the pasture towards the corner and went under the electric fence and crawled over the post there because there was nothing in the ditch there and I could see it was really clear. So I got through the ditch safely and up onto the road. And it's like 92 degrees, right? And I'm running and it's super humid. And I run that whole way and I'm like out of breath and my chest hurts, because I was not an athlete. But anyways, I get to Alice's and everybody has like the door on their house that they always use, right? And for most people in the country, it's the back door. You drive in and you park in back and you come in the back door. It's not too often, whatever. And I went to the front door because it was the closest one and my brain wasn't working very well. And Alice, opens the door because I'm pounding on the door and yelling. And she opens the door and starts yelling at me. Why are you coming to the front door? We always use the back door. And she's got curlers in her hair. Then one of her sleeveless cotton floral print shirts and her giant curlers. And I'm just kind of like, Donna's hurt. She's in the ditch and the guts are coming out. She said the guts are coming out. And I'm like freaking out, practically crying and hysterical. And Alice is like, holy shit. So she grabs me by the hand and drags me into the house and through the house and out the back door and up to the truck. And it was the oldest damn truck you have ever seen. I mean, it was one of those ones with the big wheel wells, like from the 30s. And I'm like, what? You have a newer truck. Can we take the newer truck, please? But of course, no, we had to take the old one. And so we jump in and she starts it up. And there's like the floorboards are rusted out. You can see through the floorboards to the ground. And I'm like, this is just not safe. And we were like, she just dumps the clutch and off and running in this lurching motion in this old truck that makes the most horrible noise out onto the road, hang a left, and we're flying down the road. And this road was, because the place where the fishing hole was at was sort of a curve and sort of a T. So it was sort of an intersection in a sense. And so anytime there's a curve or an intersection and people brake on gravel roads, it creates, washboards as they describe them. So like there's potholes and washboards and we're like, and I'm like holding on for dear life. And we get down the road and around the corner and we see Donna walking along the road carrying her fishing pole and her tackle box. Just casually, devil may care, walking slowly in the summer sun, clearly not hurt. And Alice looks at me and she like yells, she's like, you said the guts were coming out. And I said, Donna said the guts were coming out. She was in the ditch and she said, Joel, go get Alice because the guts are coming out. And I'm like being made out to seem like I'm being hysterical or lying or something like that. And I'm like, she was screaming like she was dying. I mean, what are you going to do? So we run down there, drive down there, and we stop, and Donna, like, just casually throws her pole and her tackle box in the back of the pickup, opens the door, and crawls up into the cab of the truck and sits down next to me. And I'm like, you said the guts were coming out. She's just like, she lifts her knee and pulls it up and towards me. It was her right knee. So she pulls it up towards me from the other side. And she points, and there's, this cut above her knee. It's not really even bleeding, which surprised me. It was less than 3/4 of an inch long, and it was deep, but there, she points to these little yellow fat globules, whatever, what fat looks like little yellow balls, right? And there was like 3 little yellow balls that was poking out of the wound. And there's some blood and everything, but it was sort of deep, but it wasn't too deep, and it wasn't very long. And she points out, like, Donna, those aren't guts. I thought your guts were coming out of your stomach. You said your guts were coming out. She said, the guts were coming out. And look at the fat. Those are the guts. I'm like, those are not the guts, Donna. Those are not guts. Those are fat globules. And she was just like, and she's totally calm about it. And I'm just like, oh my God. And Alice rolls her eyes and looks skyward like, oh my God. I'm just like, whatever. I'm like, we're done. Let's go. And Donna's like, well, what about your tackle box and your fishing pole? And I'm like, oh, that's right. So we drove around the corner, and I got out of the truck. Donna had to get out first and wait on the side of the road. And then I had to get out of the truck and then carefully thread my way through the deadly ditch full of rusty old metal farming equipment and barbed wire and shit. Get to the fence and over the rickety barbed wire fence and under the electric fence, making sure I don't get stabbed by the thistles and get a face full of cow poop, making sure I don't crawl, put my hand in a cow pie, and then stand up. And I walked over to the creek, and sure enough, you know it, I bent down and picked up my fishing pole. And I got electrocuted all over again. And I'm like, there I am. The thing you thought would never happen again. And I'm getting electrocuted, and I can't let go of the fishing pole again. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm just like, this is fucked up. God, I was so, and it was the anger. I was just pissed. I'm like, and a little scared because I'm getting electrocuted again. I'm like, why didn't my brain tell me not to do this? Why did my brain not tell me? Oh, careful. Careful there, Joel. There's an electricity current running through that fishing pole. And I managed to just by will alone this time, drop the fishing pole. And it was just a little crappy fishing pole, and I just was like, to hell with it. And I didn't have a scissors or a knife in my tackle box for some reason. And I'm like, I don't care. I was just pissed about everything. Like Donna, like actually not being that serious. She was not mortally wounded. She was not dying. And I just picked up my tackle box and walked back over to the fence and crawled under the electric fence and over the barbed wire. And Donna's like, what about your pole? And threaded my way through the ditch and got up in the truck. And she just looked at me shocked and amazed, like I'd left my pole laying there. Like she could see my pole. And I tried to explain to them, and they start laughing, oh, that's hilarious. And I'm like, oh my God, if I had no, my God. I was just like, I would never hit Donna, but I think I punched her in the arm because I'm like, this is not funny. This is not funny. I was electrocuted because you said the guts were coming out because I thought you were dying. And she's like, well, the guts were kind of coming out. I'm like, oh my God. Donna doesn't sound like that, of course. That's just my disgusted voice that I'm creating for the moment to express myself. But I was, oh my God, I was just like, whatever. I don't care about the pole. I've got my tackle box where all the important stuff is. That's that crappy little pole that I won at that stupid fishing contest, like when I was 5, and I don't care. Just let it go. And Alice was like, well, what are they going to do about that? And I'm like, I don't care, Alice. I don't care if it short circuits the fence and all the cattle get out. I don't care. Take me home now. And I got really, really pissed. I was just like, I don't care. Donna lied to me. She's just like, this is not, I'm going to want to go home. So they took me home, and I was just pissed. And I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. Did you have fun fishing, hon? I don't want to talk about it. And that was my response. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm done. I'm not going fishing anymore. So Alice ended up like taking Donna home. And I think I remember them saying that, Alice called Lloyd from Donna's like, you better go get that pole. And Joel dropped it and blah, blah, blah. So I think they took the pole, and I think they eventually brought it back to me, but I'm like, I don't want that pole. I was going to snap it in two, but so that was, a one-off. Again, it was just sort of like, just odd circumstances happened that put me into this moment of like impossible situation. Just weird, impossible. Like, how is that possible? How, like, to be electrocuted and your friend's dying and screaming, and you're just like, oh my God. I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I'm never going fishing in the electric fishing hole ever again. I promise you. Thank you for listening and for allowing me to walk with you down Eldritch Avenue.